Good evening and welcome to the April 28th, 2025 Tualatin City Council work session. Our first item on the agenda tonight is a food cart policy discussion led by Steve and Erin. Welcome. We got echoes. Great. It's starting already? Welcome, Steve and Erin.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Steve Coper, Assistant Community Development Director. Just kidding. I'm here with Erin Engman, Senior Planner, and we are here to engage with you and have a listening session around food carts. And so Erin will walk us through the presentation we have for you tonight.
It looks like we're getting that fired up for you. Thanks, Faith. So for tonight's discussion, we'll highlight the council priority that started our conversation tonight. And next, we'll revisit the existing food cart policy and where they are allowed. And then we'll recap our presentation and open the floor for questions. So in 2024, Council identified a priority to revisit the food cart policy in order to support a thriving and diversified economy. And to set the stage for our conversation, I thought it might be helpful to revisit our existing policy. The majority of our food cart regulations are found in our municipal code, and that would be in Chapter 9, subsection 10, and they are referred to as mobile food unit regulations. And those seeking to operate a food cart on private property in Tualatin must apply for a permit to review for the health and safety of individuals, as well as for the proper disposal of waste. Just a few highlights. There are no exceptions for short-term operations, and there are some exceptions or different permits required for special events in which food carts are employed. Kind of looking at our standards in a brief overview, we are looking to make sure that they do not obstruct any vehicular areas or pedestrian areas, that they provide adequate garbage and recycling for their patrons. And this is probably the most important part, that they're a self-contained unit. That means they will not connect to city, public water, sewer, or electrical. They may only operate on paved surfaces, so that means no gravel lots. And only one unit is allowed at a site at a time, with the exception of our Basalt Creek Employment Zone, which I'll kind of get into a little bit later. I guess it's on this slide. So in the Basalt Creek Zone, since we recently revisited that in 2023, we did provide some provisions to do a food cart pod there. So that would allow for one food cart development, and that may contain between 2 to 10 different food carts. It must have frontage along Grams Ferry Road. We do require screening, and it would be reviewed to subject through an architectural review process, and that would require compliance with siting and public improvement standards. So this map highlights the zones where food carts would be allowed. You'll see that it's mainly our industrial areas. They are also allowed in the office commercial zones, recreation commercial zones, and general commercial zones limited to 99 West. So the pink area up in the upper west corner. We do allow for them in institutional areas, and I mentioned the Basalt Creek Employment Zone. And I put a little star in Basalt Creek too to highlight that we would allow a pod there at this time. To kind of wrap up some of these standards, if we're looking to expand the use, I wanted to highlight what the state requires. So the state would require a food cart operator to provide a restroom with a hand washing facility with hot and cold running water if there is seating provided for the food cart. They also require garbage containers, and they have strict standards for water sourced. It could be either from the public system or commercially bottled water in a receptacle. And this kind of brings us to the end of my presentation. It was pretty brief, but we learned that the code includes many limitations for food carts. They're largely prohibited in our commercial zones. With that, I'll open it up to council and see what you're interested in learning more about. If you want us to research more about what other cities are doing in the area, if you want to expand it to other zones, or if there's any items in particular that you would like us to follow up on.
All right. Questions or comments for Aaron and or Steve? Councilor Sacco.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. So to answer your questions, yes, interested in learning more. And I am particularly interested in learning about how we can incorporate a food cart pod into our Cora area, where we can bring, a diverse food offering, but also a gathering place for folks that want to walk around our downtown area, walk to our new Riverfront Park, or also, community park, and really create an outdoor space for our community. In addition, we talked about food carts in IDEA committee this past week, so I just want to give credit where credit is due, but I did take some notes. We talked about, not only does this provide diversity of food offering, it also provides access for folks to start a small business. There's a lower cost to entry versus, starting a brick and mortar restaurant. So that was really appealing to them. The gathering place is really appealing. Also interested in learning about having a stage element. There are food cart pods out there that have a stage element where we could possibly bring in bands or other performing arts to this pod, if a pod existed. And I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Other questions, comments? Council Brooks.
Thanks for the presentation. I'm curious what other cities are doing as well. One of the interesting things that I've read about is Tigard, where they help a certain food cart get going as a city, and so they're not even just in for having it be viable, they're also in for supporting the small businesses and have it be an economic boon to everybody involved. And my other thing is, I appreciate the comments about the Cora, and I've had people come to me and say, wouldn't it be great just to have a lemonade stand and ice cream and things like that just at the lake in the Commons? A way to bring people more, so many people don't know it's there, and it might be a way of trying some things out until other private landowners were interested in participating. I know that that's one of the concerns is our limited commercial land ownership. So maybe there's a way that we could diversify throughout the public areas. I can't think of a park that I've been into, like Central Park or places like that don't have like an ice cream stand or hot dog stand or this or that. So those are the kind of things I'm thinking about with this. I appreciate it, and I see that there's, specific needs that we have around sanitation and all that, and then I also see that we have the bathrooms already there in parks and things like that, so, so I have curiosity around that. Thanks.
Council President Pratt.
Well, I agree with both my counselors that have spoken, and I have a couple questions on, and I do agree, I think we need to see what other cities are doing, but it would be nice to have food carts, especially in the summer, all year round, but then have maybe ice cream ones and things like that available for our community in the summer. I'm wondering, what is meant by screening on the Basalt Creek? What, you said screening was required, what does that mean?
See, is this on? Yeah. So we would require either a landscape screening or some sort of buffer area with screen or fence treatment, just to soften the look of the development to the public right-of-way or the residential areas that could be adjacent to it to the north.
So okay. And then, I know I go to a food cart once a week that's on gravel lots, so what's the reason for not allowing gravel lots?
Steve might have more to add, but I think most of it is just how our code is written.
Okay.
As it is today, we don't allow gravel on developed lots. We do require pavement for any surface that includes storage or vehicular areas. I don't know if you have anything.
Yeah, I don't know specific to the municipal code, I don't know the specific reason why gravel parking lots were excluded. That code is
Okay,
before my
so-
time.
Maybe that's something to look into, and then, I think that's it. I just really think, we know so many cities around us, and we hear so many good things, and I've talked, this is a real area of interest for me, and I've talked to several people, including many, or a few of them that were opposed to this when it was first voted on by city council, and they've changed their minds, so I think we've evolved, and it's time to really go forward with this. Thank you.
Other comments?
Yeah. Following up on the gravel, first, thank you for the presentation and for looking into this. I know we've asked for this for a little while. Yeah, about the gravel, is that just us, the city, or is that state regulation?
That's in particular is a city regulation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can work on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many gravel parking lots we have in the city, so I don't know that that's really an issue in particular, but as Erin said, that's a standard in our code, that development needs to be located on a paved surface.
Right, I'm sure that 10 years ago, whenever this conversation happened, there was some reason why no gravel. But I have seen food carts on gravel nicely, both gravel and pavement. Are you interested in learning more about? Yeah, I do want to learn more about the regulations and the areas, and maybe explore more, not just the core area, but other areas. I know we have that little tiny sliver on the map that we can allow them, but maybe now that we have a huge area in by Horizon with, maybe, I don't know, explore some areas around there for people to have access for food and, have that around that area. We like to see food carts allowed and others. Yeah, I do. I want to see more of that. Yeah, the other areas or items are, I just think areas, so that way, we want them to come and gather in our court, but also just have more, or the city is pretty spread out differently, so maybe in other areas, in other corners of our areas could be explored. That would be nice. So, thank you.
Other comments? Councilor Gonzalez.
Thank you for the presentation. They're very much interested in hearing more about this. I understand that you went over the current code, which, thank you for that. I would imagine that if we were going to pursue this, we would want to provide also some support to the location, right? It says here that they have to be self-contained. I know that's current code. But I would imagine that if we were going to pursue this and encourage it, we would provide probably water access, trash collection, and maybe some bathroom, or whatever facility is created, it would come with that, and people would just plug in as I've seen in other locations. I am particularly interested that when you say screening, that would be important from the onset to view that, because it can look quite ratty from the onset if you just allow, everything, like, it's kind of like I would imagine like at a flea market store, you see people posting all these advertising billboards everywhere, unorganized, looks really trashy. I would want to ensure that from the onset, it doesn't have that feel or look. It looks, you put a lattice fence that you really can't put things on the outside. That way it's nice and clean, covers the wheels and those kinds of things. So, but who would take on this endeavor? This would be a private, correct? There would have to be private land available, some developer to do this, and then the city encourage it. Is that what would need to happen for this to, or it would be city sponsored, we create the space and people would just rent from us? How would you envision this moving forward?
I think that's part of the question that we're asking of council.
That sounds all good to me. Thank you.
Councilor Hillier.
Thank you. So yes, I'm interested in learning more about the regulations. I'd like to see them potentially allowed in other zones, but I guess I would have to ask questions. I mean, we've had a lot of discussion about the gravel, but I guess if we're going to change a code, I'd like to understand the unintended outcomes and consequences of potentially changing that code. Are there liabilities if people trip and fall? Is the gravel, are we going to have to keep it up? I think there potentially were safety reasons for the cement. I don't really know. And so I'd really like to understand all the reasons and not just move in one direction. That concerns me. I also would like to better understand certainly what other cities are doing and how they're navigating it, but maybe in multiple different ways. I think not just understanding what's working today, but what were their lessons learned early on, more in depth than, hey, here's a picture of what works in another community. I think and especially if potentially taxpayer dollars are going to go into this, I think we have to ask a lot of questions, and council needs that information in order for us to move forward best. And ensuring that whatever it is that we do is a collaboration. I'd like to be sure, however that looks, as a collaboration, if that's a best practice. I really don't know what best practices are, so I'd like to understand that. Thank you.
Wrapping up the comments, yeah, sure. I'd like to see what we could do in the Cora to encourage it. Going back to the gravel, I was here. I'm laughing because Aquila was here. Aquila will be introduced a little later. The gravel's because of safety. We didn't want kids running around a gravel lot and falling down, and tires spinning up gravel, all that good stuff. But like Steve mentioned, there's not very much gravel left in the city. And one of the purposes why it wasn't in downtown, we know, is because we were trying to protect our restaurants at the time. And one of the experiments was to bring food out to the manufacturing industrial area, because what we're trying to avoid is having mass inflow of traffic into our downtown. And that's one of the things we have to keep in mind, that if you want a meeting area and you want a food pod, that's going to pull more traffic into downtown, more parking spots would be required to, host these folks. If you've ever been in West Lynn around their food cart on a weekend, it's a zoo. You can't park in West Lynn on their Main Street because there is no parking. So these are the things we need to look at, the unintended consequences of doing this. I'm very favorable to look at it. It just matters, like I think Councilor Hill, you did it perfectly well, said it perfectly well, that there's going to be some byproduct of this, because we have food carts now. I mean, I see food trucks where I live going down to Walton Road all the time, serving our commercial zones every morning. They're out there, they're doing it, they're out in all our industrial areas, because those employees have relied on the trucks coming to them. So this does work, and that's what I'm trying to encourage folks that are working, don't have to come into downtown, but we do want a meeting place, a gathering place, places where people can start small businesses and maybe get into brick and mortar. And I do have concern about having the city own the lot. I think Beaverton's one of the rare exceptions that I think the city of Beaverton initially owned that lot across the street from the Round. And I think contracts out the running of that to someone else. So I think when you do the homework, you're going to see different models and different styles of what each city has done. So it'd be interesting to see from private lots to city-owned lots that are then contracted out. But it sounds like overall, folks do want to hear what we could do to bring food carts here to Tualatin and have them in our central commercial zone. And ideally, when we're doing the urban design of the Cora, we can factor it in and find a good spot for it that will work for folks. Sound pretty good? Councilor Brooks.
Thanks. I think too, the other thing that happened during recession before, and just because we're looking at the economy now, is that some people that have brick and mortar restaurants could move into food carts as well. So it gives flexibility both ways, depending on how the market is. And looking at that, and I also agree with, I think, the sentiment, which is for things to be safe and viable for the city. And it might be actually a good way of increasing our viability with more partnerships. Thanks. And the best practices as well.
Okay. So you have what you need?
Yes, this was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That brings us to item number 2 on the work session. And that's the City Council 2025 priorities, and this will be led by our city manager, Cheryl Lombos. Welcome.
Okie dokie. Well, you held your city council advance on February 28th and March 1st. There's a couple of pictures there. I unfortunately missed it, but I'm glad that you guys carried on so capably and did a lot of good work. So listed up there is some of the things that you did throughout the 2 days. So you worked on team communication and agreements. We'll talk a little bit about that. You reviewed your 2030 vision. At some point, it's going to become a 2040 vision or a 2050 vision. You did an activity around strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats around the priorities. You reviewed the outcomes of the priorities, and then you developed some actions under each of the priorities. So on that team agreement, so on your placemat, on the front page, besides the logo being out of date, which we'll adjust. So the team agreements, the we are one team, we are prepared, we are strategic, we are innovative. You maintained those, I believe. You made some minor adjustments to them, some wordsmithing. But the new one is in your packet on, you should have it in front of you. And with your approval, we will update the placemat and just leave the 4 team agreements, unless you want some summarized version of the language behind each of the 4. So, I mean, there's a paragraph around each one of them, and they're great. They're great. So that's one check-in. When we update the placemat, would you like some additional language around these 4 team agreements on your placemat? You have any thought about that?
Thoughts?
Doesn't matter.
I like just the
I like the
general
4,
categories.
yeah.
Because you pack too much verbiage on this mat, you're not
Yeah.
going to look at it.
Be hard to look at. All right, we'll go with that. Rick, the consultant that we use, Rick Johnson, he suggested that you continue to practice these team agreements and remind yourself of them and do things that get back to acknowledge those team agreements, whether when you do something that supports one of the team agreements or when you call on your fellow council member that maybe didn't do something that was supportive of the team agreements. So continuing to practice, he says, is an important thing. So on to, I keep forgetting that I'm in charge of this. On to the vision statements. So the 7 vision statements are up here, and they're also on your placemat. We will adjust the logo when we update the placemat. But it sounds like you spent time reviewing them, and you discussed the work taking place. I reviewed the notes, all of the notes that came out of the groups. The consensus was, I believe, that other than inserting the new logo, the vision statements serve us well and no written changes are necessary at this time. Some of the comments from the 3 groups were they are well balanced, they do not compete with each other, they are actionable, they are flexible, they are specific enough to be measurable, they are broad enough to be consistent with a vision, but specific enough to guide the priorities and allow staff to implement. That resonates with me. Are you guys all good with that? All right. Wonderful. I think from a staff perspective, and I'm sure you heard it on March 1st, that that is the staff consensus, that they are broad enough that we're able to take direction, but they're not drilled down so specific that we aren't able to have flexibility. All right. Oh my. Ah. He reads my mind. So there are 7 priorities, and the priority categories did not change from the what is on your placemat before you. And they are very aligned with the seven vision statements. So you clearly put a lot of work into like refining the outcomes and then developing some action items under each one of these. So the first one, neighborhood engagement. So continuing to celebrate investments in our neighborhoods. Strong relationships are built between the community and the council and the staff. The community is educated for allowing for full and effective engagement. Neighborhoods are informed, and Tualatin is livable. So there's 8 actions that were identified under this priority that lead to those outcomes. So I'm not going to read through every single one, but street trees are clearly still a priority, and sidewalk maintenance. And so we've got good work around both of those. The CIOs are an important part of neighborhood engagement in Tualatin. And that also includes CERT. And that the CERT program, the resiliency, could go under several different categories, but it landed here in neighborhood engagement, and I think that's appropriate. And then continuing with neighborhood investments around the city and building relationships and understanding what the neighborhood needs and then celebrating those investments in our neighborhoods. So I want to stop there and just do a check-in and make sure that you see your words reflected here and you're good with this priority 1 and these actions. Or any comments?
Councilor Brooks.
I think they're all pretty specific, and I think the implication too with the priorities are that we do neighborhood engagement, like when we do the Cora, when we do any kind of planning, and the city's really great at that, so I don't feel like it needs to be spelled out. But just because those are up there doesn't mean it's a limiting device.
Right.
Right. That's the only thing that might be confusing to somebody just reading it.
Okay.
I told one of you this, or more of you this, but just reading through them, not having been there, some of them are overlapping and could seem duplicative. And as I was going through them with the staff, was thinking, oh, well, we could combine some of these, like conduct a street tree inventory and adopt and implement a new sidewalk and street tree policy, or implement changes to the sidewalk maintenance program. So 1, 2, and 3 could be combined. But then as I thought about it, thought, no, it's good to like have them separate, even though they may be overlapping, because it allows for some metrics under each one of them, and then you kind of know when you're getting something done, right? As opposed to like a big compound sentence that you never know if you got there, so. Priority 2, housing.
I did have one statement on the prior slide.
Yes.
So we talked about the CIOs. Maybe this is not the meeting, but potentially a suggestion that we spell out what CIO stands for, because people forget what that means. I know I didn't know until I got to council, and I still always forget what it is. And we also talked about giving some more life to the CIO. So for example, when somebody comes here to speak, ask the question, what CIO are you from? So we begin to bring more life to it by asking those questions and they can list it. In other committees, maybe talk about the CIOs as well, because there is this, the CIO to me feels like it's just a burden sometimes. I don't think it is, but it feels like that. It's just a once-a-year meeting. I mean, the CIOs and the IDEA committee should be collaborating a little bit more, because they are a community-based organization on community inputs. I don't see that cross-collaboration. Maybe they should collaborate more. There's different initiatives, but the IDEA committee is supposed to garner other things, and the CIO is supposed to do the same thing for their respective parts of the town. So just trying to breathe some more life into the CIO program versus just a once-a-year meeting, a default cert, default emergencies only, and that's it. So we kind of also talked more about that at the meeting. So.
Thank you for that input. Yes, we have talked about spelling out community involvement organizations. Otherwise, it's like our chief information officer. Oh, off to housing. I mean, housing is clearly a continued priority. The outcomes here, diverse, livable, sustainable housing, data-driven decision-making to support our housing needs. There's an understanding of the regional landscape and how Tualatin fits into that, and that we offer a friendly environment for people in the housing process, whether that is they're trying to get into housing, or even the development process for building housing. I think that relates to as well. So there are 5 actions associated with this, and those include continuing to examine options for diversifying our housing stock, which includes using our new lobbyist, zoning, incentives, responding to legislative updates that impact our housing production, which that is happening right now, and we're keeping an eye on that kind of thing. Continuing to see how we can integrate green space into new developments, and that has been encapsulated in code after the Autumn Sunrise development, but continuing to look for that. Advocating for services to support housing insecurity and houselessness, leveraging our new houselessness liaison, Megan Cohen, who you heard from the last council meeting. And then continuing to have updates from Metro and the counties and our community partners about what's happening in this space, including staying updated about the SHS, the Supportive Housing Services measure that Metro is working on. Any reaction to these, or want to move on to economic development? Okay. So much happening in the economic development space right now in Tualatin. It's super exciting. In the outcomes, I think that the continuing clear communication about what's happening in our urban renewal areas, and with Sid on board, I think we're poised to see that, and he's doing a great job on that. A connected community through development planning. It's innovative, imaginative, and responsive. I love that. Whatever group came up with those exciting words. Integrate placemaking into our current processes. So that's the identity piece of development. And we're just engaged in supporting our vibrant economy.
President Pratt.
The last action item is about the destination signage. I know it says Veterans Plaza, but we particularly were talking about the whole Lake of the Commons area, because people do not know it's there, other than the 30,000 people that come for the pumpkin run.
So it wasn't just specific to Veterans Plaza. It was, shedding light on the Commons area. Mm-hmm.
And Arts Walk, all the different features, amenities, if you will, that are out there that people aren't aware of.
So the 8 actions, I thank you for picking up on that, Council President Pratt. So the food cart policy and specifications, that of course is, you just heard from Steve and Aaron, and we heard from you. Leverage our new staff capacity, and Sid is just going gangbusters and really exciting. Continuing to provide information on Cora and the Southwest Basalt Creek development area. Making sure that we know the look and feel of Tualatin as we're continuing into these placemaking or these planning efforts. And Sid described to you at the last council meeting the hiring Civilis she's an urban strategist, to help us with that identity, to figure out our own identity. Any other thoughts or comments?
Council Brooks.
I was just curious. It's funny because today when I was over looking at the new art, I stopped in the chamber and folks were asking if we had any updated brochures for the city. And I said my thoughts were that because we're doing this brand refresh, that there might be something coming. So I'm just curious if there's a plan with like a city informational brochure that will be developed as part of the brand refresh. And just coming back from Ashland, like what the mayor was saying, having something that has a map, that has the national trails, the water trail, the bike, and then the commons and retail would be nice. I also noticed the new big map they have from Tualatin Valley Creates that was pretty cool. Anyway, so I'm just wondering if we're thinking through, even if it was just a one-pager that took somebody to the website, but I do think there's something nice about having something where there's a wayfinding and that tells us about the art walk and the different things that are happening here that a lot of people, they're hidden gems.
Yeah. I think the closest thing we have to that is the chamber directory, and it includes all of the city information. It includes a city map. It includes those points of interest, but it also includes a lot of other stuff. It's not like a wave, like something, like not like a brochure, but
Yeah, the one, I don't know what it was, because I didn't really look at it that carefully, but it was, because it seemed like they were kind of saying it was a little out of date or something. So it was just, you know, the size of a pamphlet, but I just thought, since we're doing the branding refresh, that there might be something as we roll that out that comes. And I thought it fit in well with this. It wasn't on my radar. Thanks.
thank you. Okay. Under transportation, so I've been here for almost 19 years, and transportation has never dropped off the list. And I don't think it ever will in my next 40 years here. Thereabouts. Yes, we continue to focus on transportation, but I like that you've identified, like, let's create clear, measurable talking points and goals and priorities so that we can strategically advocate for our transportation needs. And as long as I've been here, this council is as on the forefront of advocacy as any council I've ever worked for. So many of you are on regional committees and are just so knowledgeable and are, you know, just active when it comes to advocating for our transportation priorities. Other outcomes, protecting our funding streams. That's that 50-30-20 split at the state that we want to continue to advocate for. And that we're at the table for regional transportation discussions, and I know that you are. So there's 6 items here, including completing the TSP, the Transportation System Plan Update, which is on track and is right now in the public engagement phase, the last public engagement phase. It is the banner on the front of our website now, so it's a little easier to find. Yeah, we're looking for any and all input. I see regular transportation updates to the council and the community. Take that to heart, and getting updates in front of you of what's happening. Anything else that you wanted to call out under the transportation bit?
I really appreciate those updates from Mike, because like when Martin has these closed and all my neighbors think I know.
Thank you.
On item 4.5, don't want to lose sight of, you know, the east-west connection between us and Oregon City along 205. You know, Basalt Creek's important north-south on Boones Ferry Road, but Basalt Creek's also important going east-west.
Yeah.
You know, we know they're going to be standing up the bus on shoulder on 205 here shortly. Smart will be doing that, but we just want to, you know, call out that it's both direct, you know, north, south, east, west, and that because sometimes we get so focused on north, south, we forget about getting people east, west, because there is no alternative. It just doesn't happen on TriMet. So.
Yeah. And as Basalt Creek starts to develop, you know, there's an annexation in front of you tonight. That east-west connection is really important.
I think also here, they're not specifically called out when we know bus services TriMet, but ride connection. I hear so many people that still don't realize what ride connection does. They think it's just for employers, and, you know, employees get into employer sites. They don't know about the 3 different routes, so somehow, you know, the challenge has been marketing that and getting the word out about it. Even though they do have marked stops now, that's a struggle, because I hear constantly that we don't have a local transportation system. I'm like, yeah, we do. It's not well known. So I think that should be in 4 or 5 too.
Okay. Got it.
Anything else?
I just want to say too, in the beginning of the year, I always think of my own priorities, and communication really came up for me this particular year. And backing on to what you said, I feel like we have a lot of gems in our city that we don't talk about and enough in my mind. And so I would just like, we've done a lot of really great things and getting the word out and really shining up everything that we do. There's a lot of hidden things like the lake, the river, the bus service, there's so many things like that. And it'd be nice for it to be easier, and really that we have a lot of pride.
Preach. All right. Under the environment, the Climate Action Plan is clearly a big part of this, but also resiliency and even down to securing funding for the seismic valves at the reservoirs, which is a big part of resiliency. So the actions, the outcomes, the Climate Action Plan is being effectively implemented. We have a resilient response to environmental issues and the changes. The Climate Action Plan is funded, and we have a prioritized 5-year implementation plan. We apply an environmental lens to all our projects. I think I appreciate that as an outcome. And then we're proactive, and we have a proactive approach, and we're less reactive, less fighting fires, and more strategic, proactive approach. Move the Climate Action Plan forward in the actions. Clearly, that's a big one, but also the backyard habitat and the bee city and hiring a staff person, all of those things fit into these 8 actions and a lot more, but anything you want to call out here?
Even when we're talking about the gravel lots, there's way of doing it so there's not tripping and still having permeable ground. So there's some that would argue, having non-permeable, we have a lot of non-permeable surfaces. We have a really hot city, and people were asking, at the breakfast, for instance, why should we do this? And part of it is to cool down our city, and we can make a difference to do that. So that makes it more livable for everybody. That whole thing about people dying in the parks from exposure, that's a real thing. And it's just a serious thing to think about and consider. It's not just a check mark, it's a mindset. So I really appreciate the idea, that last piece about really considering all those things when we're moving through our decision making.
Yeah. Anything else? All right, on to parks. So clearly the bond program is an important component of this, and keeping informed. We certainly want to continue to do that. Our recreation programs, so as you know, they're wildly popular, and Tualatin isn't the only place that we have more demand than there is service, but we are, working on that, and how can we expand our capacity and build our capacity to accommodate more. We have successful events that are celebrated and even improved, and as we go along, and then we have ample resources to meet the community demand in our parks, trails, and recreation programs. So there's 7 items here. much around communication and delivering projects, but also building capacity and exploring opportunities, revenue opportunities. You will see in the budget, there's when we come forward, there's a study proposed to look at our programs and how are we in the market, and can we expand and take advantage of other opportunities in the rec market, so.
What I cannot, I don't remember what exactly we talked about, but what I'm not seeing that I thought we talked about was moving forward and with the school district on that, making sure there's more playing fields for the kids.
Oh. I will go back and find those notes and review through them, but, so partnership with the school district on athletic fields?
Is that still going? It seems to have stagnated.
And I think it was on a pause until Dustin got here. I know that they are having some meetings, so we can get an update.
Tried to understand the pause with Dustin, but I also thought TTSD was on a longer pause, considering what's going on with TTSD.
I'm sorry, I don't know the update on that, but that very well could be. I know they've been very focused on their own bond projects and
Their
other
budget.
things, so, and their budget. But athletic fields was a big part of the bond program, and I know we've done, some things, like the LED lights, but upgrading either our own athletic fields or partnering with the school district to provide more capacity is expected in the bond. Okay. Review notes. All right, that brings us to the culture and identity, so the last one. And the outcomes here, Tualatin is a trauma-informed organization. Strategic planning skills are employed around the organization, and our strategic planning skills are developed and are bettered. Progress is shared on the IDEA committee. I also saw some comments that not just the IDEA committee, it's also other committees and their annual reports and integrating, having them communicate with each other. So I think that's also really good and important. And then culture and identity, this was reflected in the economic development one, I believe, as well, of understanding who we are and what we want to look like. The actions, 7.1 through 7.7. Develop a strategic city communications plan. That has come up a couple of times before, and so yes, working towards that. I don't know how much discussion was had at the advance about that. I think getting through our website redesign and then kind of pulling ourselves together and figuring out what's next and that kind of strategic communications plan. The Launch a City website, I was talking to Megan, must have been today's Monday, earlier in the week, about getting an update in front of you, and probably in May or the first part of June, about the city website, and it's very exciting. It's looking very good. Looking at the comp plan, begin that conversation, that process. We're beginning that process, so defining what that process is and looks like, and what you want out of a comp plan review. Anything else you want to call out?
Pretty point on this one. Councilor Brooks?
And just because it was brought up a little bit, those, the outcomes that we did this time were more measurable. And it was very specific, and I know just him being a psychologist, you have to have measurable outcomes, or the insurance companies are not going to pay you because you're not doing things that are, you don't have efficacy, and you're at risk. So I think that the strategic planning with measurable outcomes and best practices, those things, and getting in that mindset so that, not that there's no flexibility, but that there's boundaries and that there are, that we stay on direction. I think we've done a lot as a city council and a city, and I think this is the way of, like, after we do the communications plan, when do we look at the update for that? What's the overall plan? It doesn't have to be broken down to every little piece, but I think that that would be really good so that we don't end up in these sort of like 30-year holes or whatever they are.
Anything else?
I appreciate the feedback and the time you spent really digging into this work. And as staff, we appreciate the direction and the guidance and understanding your priorities. It drives our work. So thank you. You will also see in the budget presentation and our budget committee meetings, we will call out where there's money designated for specific priorities. So yeah. You'll see that in that work as well.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
So is Sid ready to go, or is he, we're about 20 minutes ahead? Okay. So while we're waiting, we'll go ahead and talk about, we've got 4 proclamations tonight. Police, so let's see.
Although, Mayor, I don't think he was going to make a
Oh, he's not
presentation.
yet? He was going to be available, I thought.
Yeah, available. Thank you.
So let me write this down. So I've got Vietnamese American Proclamation. I have the substance abuse, and I have public service. Okay, public service. Write that down. You want this? This one's got your name on. Come on. All right. So Councilor Sacco is doing a Vietnamese American. Octavio is doing public service. Yeah, it's Public Service Week. Police Week is Council President Pratt, and Councilor Hillier's National Prevention Week. All right. So Cora Community Advisory Committee appointments. As Sid mentioned 2 weeks ago, there are going to be roughly 12, 13 folks that are going to be the Citizen Advisory Committee members that will help advise the process going forward for the next couple of years, starting out here very shortly in May, and the next 2 years will be on that design and planning. So we want a set of eyes that, 1, actually want to be there, 2, have special insights, and 3, have the best interest of Tualatin and the residents of Tualatin, creating this Cora. The 2 primaries are going to be myself and Councilor Sacco in terms of city council, but we do want to have an alternate in case one of us can't make it. I've got several people who mentioned they want to be that alternate. I know Councilor President Pratt was first to come. I think Councilor Brooks, and so we got to figure out who the alternate's going to be. I obviously could just pick one, But, I just want to hear from folks. Ideally, we can, come to consensus who it's going to be. My take is, since Councilor Pratt is City Council President, she should have first dibs at it, but I'm open to the floor on how do you want to do this. Councilor Brooks.
I'm fine with Council President Pratt being the alternate, and then I'm also kind of curious, like sometimes because I have never been on the ground development thing, and I've worked in real estate, design, architecture, all those things. So, so when we do the process, like how we identify the committees and things like that, when is it just an appointment and when do we vote as a council? And I think that's a conversation for another day, but I'm curious about those things. But I totally support.
So what Sid is doing right now, remember there were certain slots allocated for different slots on the CAC, and he's going out and finding out potential volunteers for those slots. I know I've mentioned, remember, like the Chamber of Commerce, and my dream was to get Skip Stanaway, and Skip Stanaway said yes, that he will represent the Tualatin Chamber of Commerce, plus wear his architect hat, which is a big deal. So when those selections are made, I believe come on up, Sid, that will be coming back to City Council for approval of the members of the committee. Because you're just going to pick them? I mean, usually we review it.
Oh,
It's not going to second guess it, but it's usually the people. Go ahead.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm going back.
Okay.
I just have a suggestion that since there's two of you, that if I were the alternate, then if I couldn't make it, that Counselor Brooks could just be a second alternate. Does that make sense? Or,
Well, what about us? I don't, because I'm interested too, and I'm
okay,
interested
then
because
it
I
causes
think
troubles.
we need other diverse people in this committee, so.
Right. Well, we're gonna have IDEA committee representatives, correct?
Oh,
And-
Yeah.
that makes it up for a diverse group.
Well, I mean, we have people from all different aspects of the community.
Go ahead, say.
It's okay, go ahead.
I just wish I know how the process happened when you were asking who was going to be, how did certain counselors get chosen over others?
Okay.
And who made that decision? So,
Okay, well, I made the decision for the primaries.
why is that?
Because Councilor Sacco and I were on the original committees for these urban renewal zones. So I wanted to carry that forward. All the process that we know and how it's happened to this date. We've got the history in our heads to continue it on.
What if one person gets voted out or something like that, and then you would have not been able to carry that?
So Councilor Sacco just got reelected for 4 years, so she's good to go for 4 more years. I'll be done in 2 years, and by the end of that 2 years, the process will be wrapping up on high-level design, if you will, and then kicking into what I'm considering, what everybody's been waiting for, the big reveal, and that would be someone else will take, my place. It'll be a new mayor and everything, so.
This defeats the purpose of what you're saying about moving forward with the next person, because you're assuming that people will be elected. Because you just said that the reason why you selected Councilor Sacco is because she was in the former committee.
And she
so,
just got reelected. So she'll be here for the whole 4 years.
I don't know. I wish I'd known a little bit more about it. That's all.
Okay,
I wish I'd known a little bit more
all
about it.
right.
So the list, there are representatives from the IDEA Committee, for instance. So the IDEA Committee is picking theirs.
Right.
Arts, who else is, what other
Get the
committee?
list in front of you.
The CIO,
CIO Parts Advisory Committee.
the
a youth member, aging task force, property business owner.
So where I thought council approval was those the categories, and then like the IDEA committee is picking theirs, and so I didn't think it would come back to council for approval of those actual people, just who's being represented by the chamber, for instance. Yeah. I did not expect it to come back for ultimate approval, but if you want it to come back for approval.
What do you say?
Question, the aging task force, that's why them? Why do they select their own member? I'm just asking,
No,
I mean,
yeah,
I'm
no,
not,
it's
I'm
to
not opposed, I'm
represent
just,
senior interest in the Cora. So when it comes to like ADA, compliance, things that are important to seniors, so that we don't overlook, you know, how someone who's, walking downtown in their 70s, that we don't overlook something that's important to that segment of the community.
how about someone like that from that speaks Spanish or that can communicate to that? I mean, from the other, it's a task force, it's not a committee of the advisor of us, the council, so I'm just wondering. And then, I don't know, I just think it's, I don't know, I'm surprised, that's all. Surprised that we did not include more task force or other groups to select their members.
There's a list, but is there a group that you would feel could be, because this is what we did in the last city council meeting, and, you were
I'm
our.
sorry,
yeah,
I
yeah.
was up-
Yeah,
I
you're
was
doing a work
working
thing, you were
because I
doing a work
work.
thing, yeah. So, to address
have
your
someone
concern,
from
is there
the
someone
Spanish
from the Latino?
Yeah,
work,
of course,
the
that's my
Latino
concern.
business?
Yeah, number one concern, because that is the other percentage of population that lives here and rents here and also is buying property. So of course, that's part of my concern.
Oh, yeah, is there someone that, we talked about the group at the State of the City that would want to, put in the volunteer time and do it? If
Well, have
can-
you asked?
We haven't asked, but we can do it, if you'd like to have that group represented.
Absolutely, I would
Okay.
think that we can ask that group and see who wants to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I could just add to that, it's perfect question, perfect timing. On this Thursday, actually, I'm doing a presentation to the Latino business networking. And I was going to talk about the downtown revitalization process and ask them and engage. How is the best way to reach out and work with the community? So that would be an opportunity to ask if anyone is specifically interested in serving on the CAC, if that's what the council would like. Give me direction on.
But that wasn't mentioned earlier. You seem like you already selected your people, like your committee.
We had general slots, but we can add one more.
Yeah, I'd like to add that. Thank
Okay.
you.
So, okay, reach out there.
Council Brooks.
And I hear you too. Just for transparency, I don't think that there's going to be a lot of pushback on the selections, but I do think because there's been a lot of people surprised at how the committee was selected in the first place, that maybe that group would be good just in case something doesn't stick out like a red flag for somebody. That's my thought.
I
Is it-
agree with what she just said. I think
Whatever
it's not
anybody
too
else
much,
thinks, but
yes.
that's my 2 cents.
I'm not opposed. I'm not opposed to it. I just feel like it. I don't think all of us were known that this was happening. I mean, I didn't know, and that we were gonna have to select these group of people, and that's fine. I'm not opposing. I just feel like I wish I'd known so I can give a little bit of feedback on that as well.
Okay.
And I was interested as well, but yeah, we can do that some other time.
All right.
I do want to point out that the CAC is not the only opportunity for engagement and involvement. they have a very specific role. And there'll be lots of opportunity over these next 2 years, over these next 6 months, for the community that will market this and activities, whether that's Civilis doing some forums. This is not the only thing that is going for the Cora, that if you're not on it means that you don't have an opportunity to have your voice heard.
Plus, don't forget, you're a development commissioner, so you have the ultimate say. That all the work coming back from the committees will be coming back to us as commissioners, and be involved there too.
I'm just wondering how often the whole council will get, as this process is going to move pretty quickly, so how often do you expect to be in front of council to make sure everybody's updated on what's going on?
Yeah, great question. I think part of that might be a discussion with Mayor Bubenik and Councilor Sacco, because they will be the council representatives, and certainly I'll attend whenever we need updates, but I'm hoping that they could be conduits to the council directly, informally and formally at council meetings, but yeah.
But I could also imagine, I mean, on the milestones, there are opportunities to come back and
Yeah.
update the council, and we can very definitely keep that in mind of coming back at appropriate times to update the council on all of that.
Thank you, but updating doesn't mean you're making decisions. You're just listening of what's already happening on grounds. So to me, that's I just didn't, I don't know. I appreciate this conversation, to be honest, because I feel like I can express myself a little bit more, but updating someone about what's going on doesn't mean I'm engaged and hands-on. It's just, I'm just listening, and I'm just saying yes or no. So that's just my take on it, and I appreciate everything, but I wish it would have been a little bit more, I would have been aware a little bit more and have the opportunity to voice and say, I want to be part of this as well.
Councilor Brooks.
I agree with what you said, and a creative process is different, and this is a big creative process. I don't know if there's ways of the council being more invested in the creative process part of this, because when I think of counselors, when I think of every single counselor, I think of different gifts that people bring to the creative process. So it's a big conversation. I also appreciate there's a look at, I understand filming and some things that we can like check in as counselors to watch into, but it is different than participating. So it's a weird one, because it's such a big conversation to have two people on the council be part of that conversation in a very different way than the whole council for the future of our whole downtown, with very different everyone's got very different perspectives, that there's a certain, I think, shared disappointment among a lot of us. So I don't know any counselor that wouldn't want to be on this committee, which is a great thing to say about our council and how invested we are. And I don't know if there's something creative about doing it. And the other thing is, we're looking forward to getting to know you better too, and what you're bringing to the table. And just a left turn for me is how environmental aspects are going to be looked at and who's going to represent that. And then is the parks director going to be part of it too? Because that park that's right there where the new landing is used to be led by the parks, and now it's in the Cora. So I just want to make sure that the parks plan is, staying a parks plan and not turning into a business plan.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Okay. I do share concerns with Councilor Reyes because the Hispanic community is 15% of Tualatin population, and they were not given first priority. The IDEA committee was given priority when we have 0.00005 of that community. I just don't get it. I don't understand why it shouldn't just be automatic default to have that representation when the population is so large. But yet we give first priority to the IDEA committee, a brand new committee, that there's overlapping opinions that the IDEA committee can bring. With the IDEA committee is supposed to be bringing other sectors. So the Aging Task Force, the disabilities, other, not just a particular sector. But we have the Aging Task Force to be coming in there with the IDEA committee. What are they supposed to represent? I mean, it's just a small group. We have the Latino community, 15%, not even considered as an automatic. We should be automatic on that list, and we're not. So it's too bad. So.
I agree that Latino community needs to be represented. They are 20% of our population, but it was an oversight at all of our parts but Councilor Reyes, because we were asked who we wanted included, and none of us brought it up. So it's an oversight in all our parts.
Councilor Hillier.
Actually, that's what I was going to bring up also. It was brought up before, and we all agreed on it in your amazing presentation, Sid. And so I think we all have to take some onus on that. And I'm a little surprised at us, actually. And so I'm sorry that we put everyone in this position. But I guess I'd also like to acknowledge that maybe I feel like when people come before this body and give a report out from the individual groups that we represent, there's a really incredible report out. I mean, each of us takes the time to make sure that we have the details, and I guess I don't see that as being any different. And I can appreciate that maybe we're not going to have input the way a committee member would, but we're going to have the opportunity to hear what's going on and ask a question. And I trust the people on this council. I trust that you're going to bring information back to us. And I don't have a problem with people being appointed sometimes. So I guess that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Here's my thing. It's like if I had not brought it up today, this would have continued without even thinking about it. Like, to me, that is unacceptable that it wasn't even on the forefront. So if I had not brought it up today, this would have just continued without including anyone that can speak for the Spanish-speaking population. And I'm not saying Latino, I'm speaking Spanish population, because a lot of them do speak English and they can get involved. And so I feel like, must I continue doing this always? That I have to like bring it up. So, oh yeah, why don't we include this community? So to me, that's disappointing to hear that it was going to continue without even. I wasn't here, so I apologize. I had to work, but just I felt like we have passed through that already, and that we were just on that path, and so that's kind of my disappointment. And I have expressed a lot of interest in the development in the downtown area. I mean, many times, and so to not even be considered, that's also disappointing. But more likely because you didn't even think about the Spanish-speaking community. To me, it's just it's how important it is to continue to voice my opinion, because that wasn't even on the forefront. So that's where I'm gonna not continue talking, but thank you very much for the opportunity to speak up.
All right. Okay. So we're going to add that category to, and perfect timing, as you said, we'll get a volunteer to join the committee.
And we can bring back an update on the committee, the makeup, once everybody has been added. And so we can make that an agenda item or an update on that. And the Parks Director, so the Technical Advisory Committee, so the TAC, is where the Parks Director, the environmental, the employee, the implementation manager, they will sit on that and advise the CAC.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sid. All right, so agenda review, we got the proclamations already assigned. Councilor Brooks is up for the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. Any questions, concerns on the consent agenda tonight? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and start the council roundtable. Would you like to start or be near the end? Remember this, we're going to wrap you in. We'll have you start.
Okay. My inaugural manager's report. I've gone 18 years without it. So CIO meetings, I'm sure some of you will talk about the ones that have happened. We had a good, the IBAC CIO met last week, and there were a couple of other ones that you guys have been at, but there is an upcoming one on Saturday, May 3rd, that at 10:30 here in this room, that's the East CIO. The River Park Community Fair is on May 17th. We'll have a council meeting before that, but wanted to just point that out. Let's see. Jerry Ann and I have continued to be involved in meetings regarding the funding and governance of the library, WCCLS. We had a big meeting last week. We have another one this week. On your next council meeting, which is May the 12th, there will be a briefing by Jerry Ann to you about what it has come down to is service boundaries and funding allocation. So we're getting down to brass tacks about the impact to Tualatin. So we're excited to share with you kind of where it's getting. Budget development, so we've been very busy as an organization putting the upcoming budget together, so the 25-26 budget. And of course, your budget committee, the first budget committee meeting will be on May 12th during the work session time. We've been discussing how to move forward with the police department needs in light of not getting the federal earmark dollars, the approximately $1 million, maybe a little bit more. As a reminder, so that would have funded a new roof, which is in desperate need of repair, the HVAC system, the flagstone, which is that kind of I don't know how to describe it except for stone that's like flags. No. Flagstone that's inside. So we took care of the outside, made it into the sidewalk, but it's not ADA accessible, and it's very it's problematic and it needs to be replaced. Also the fire panel and interior upgrades. So all of those things are in need of repair and replacement, and so we've been talking to Dawn and thinking about grants and just what we can do to fund those needed repairs. HR's got to be included. So paid leave Oregon has been a big deal these past 2 years, and it's been super challenging on the organization and HR in particular. We applied to bring PLO in-house, and we were approved by the state, and so that will increase our service to our employees. So it's a really big hassle if you need to take leave through the Paid Leave Oregon system, and they don't communicate very well with us, and our employees find it super bureaucratic and very clunky. So this will facilitate much better service for our employees, and in addition, so it's 1% of your salary. So the city pays 40% of that, and employees pay 60% of that. And so that will stop. So the city will save that money, and employees will save that money, and we'll be able to bring it in-house. So we're very excited that the state accepted our application for that. We have a new AI policy, not an A1 policy, but an AI policy. What's that stand for? Oh, yes, artificial intelligence. Thank you. I'm clearly not.
Unless you're Apple. then it's
Exactly,
Apple
A1.
Intelligence.
And so Bates has been on a roadshow around the organization training us, but he also has been doing a series of classes at the Poll Center on AI. I wanted to call it A1. And so the first class he held, there were like 15 people and a waiting list. And the second class, they doubled. And so there were 30 seniors at the Poll Center that Bates got to talk about AI and how to use it and the pitfalls. And so he's now on, we're checking into renting out the Moda Center for him.
They'd run around.
Is that a fundraiser? Yeah.
Next week is Public Service Appreciation Week, and there'll be a proclamation tonight. But we do a series of activities. We host a lunch that's catered by Qdoba on Tuesday, and we serve the city employees. And then we have an all-staff meeting on Wednesday where we'll celebrate a bunch of stuff. And we have a wonderful set of city employees and that really care about public service, and it's always exciting to celebrate them. So that's next week. 103rd and IBAC property, you may be getting emails about that. The city attorney sent a kind of a standard response. We have not, that you can give to constituents. With some basic information about the property and the site. We have not heard about an upcoming neighborhood meeting as of yet from the developer, so no news on that. And then finally, transportation system plan feedback. It is up on the front page of our website, and we're looking for feedback about that. It'll be up there maybe another month or so, so if you want to put it out on your social media feeds, that would be great. Just looking forward to having that updated and approved. And that'll be at council, I believe, I don't know when that is. I'm sorry, I did not write that down, but before the end of the year for sure. I think, the art installation, I had a note from Dustin that the 3 pieces will begin on Monday, but they're all in, and striking, and it was really cool to meet the artist, and some of you had already met him before, but that will just enliven the commons even more. It's really exciting, so that's my report.
Thank you. Councilor Gonzalez.
I do have one question for you. I heard on the radio today that the mayor, and I believe on a PSA on the electric that was granted that we no longer have anymore. Is there an update on that for the electric charging stations?
I do not have an update. I do not have an update on it.
Because on the PSA that showed up, Mayor, you were on it today. It came out around 4 o'clock. It showed that we were going to do what we could to continue that project. Just wondering where those funds were going to come from.
Oh, just continuing the lobby.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just the lobby.
I mean, the federal delegation still says there is hope, but they're not giving up. Because remember, it was a 90-day pause, and all these reviews, the 90 days is now expired, so we're hoping to hear back on if there's any decisions been made that it's definitely dead, or some of them might proceed.
Wonderful. I have nothing new to report. All my activities are starting to come up here in the next 3 months, so I'll have more in the next updates.
Okay.
I am hosting the CIO on this ECIO, so I'll be speaking on that.
All right. Councilor Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended the PAB meeting last Thursday. We did an update, a public hearing on the comprehensive plan. They hired a consultant to do this to help the process because there's different interests for all the rules changes from different organizations. So like the HUD doesn't really match with some of the presidential things. It doesn't. So they brought in somebody and did a really good job. So that was, I think that was the last hearing for that. And then there was one organization that we're looking at for a home grant, just to spend some money that was in the rears, that was left over, and I think that the concern is there about use it or lose it conversation. So that's happening. That's what I'll be doing tonight. And then we also had the Arts Advisory Committee. We are moving forward with 4 new traffic box signals, or traffic box wraps, and there's one that's still being decided upon, but the art's been selected. I just have to say the Arts Committee has done an amazing job sort of updating the request for proposal application. So we got proposals from all over the world, and the same with my other update, which is with Dow Bloomberg being in town today doing the installation. I just really suggest everybody look at his website. It's incredible that his work is coming here. He makes those sculptures out of like airplane material. The process that he puts into it is incredible, and his reputation is top tier among artists. And for him to have this installation here as the first installation on the entire West Coast is really something that's a feather in our cap. I invited him here tonight to talk more about it. Unfortunately, I think it got too sunny and hot. But I would really think that it would be a good idea to have him maybe do a Zoom or do something about talking about each piece, how it was designed and developed and why, and how it reflected what the community asked for. And then also his resume, so that we really know how to talk about this and how to be proud of what we have here. It's hard to do that when we don't know what it is that we have exactly. So just from going through that process, I think it's an important piece. And our chair of the Arts Committee was out there all day today. She was informing everybody from Bricks and all over the place that it was a historical moment for our city and the reasons why, and nobody knew about it. So I just want to say that, like I said earlier, I'm really dedicated to communication and inspiration these next 2 years, and this is a very inspiring thing, and I want to bring our community along with it as we move forward in a really meaningful way. Thanks.
Councilor Sacco.
Thank you. So we had the IDEA committee meeting last week. We had Sid come and talk about Cora. So the IDEA committee basically got the same presentation. We pared down a little bit that we received our last council meeting as well. And because I think there's going to be a big marriage between the IDEA committee and the Cora work, to make sure that Cora does represent our community. And I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you, Maria, for picking up on our shortfall from last meeting. I really do appreciate that. So I think we're close to having a representative from IDEA picked for that committee. And as I mentioned before, we also talked a lot about food carts in preparation for this meeting, knowing that it would be coming before council, so I could share their insights as well. I did want to mention as well that a few representatives from the IDEA committee are working with the city along with some Pride Stride members on a Pride concert, which is going to be August 8th. So if you looked at our list of concerts in the parks, that you will see that that one is tagged our Pride event. So really excited to work with the city on that initiative. Thank you very much. I appreciate the support. And then lastly, State of the City, of course. I think everybody did a great job. Those that were there, Maria, your video was great. Thank you so much for taking the time ahead of time to be with us, even though you couldn't be with us. So great job, everybody. Thank you.
Councilor Hillier.
Thank you. On April 22nd, which feels like a month ago, we had the IBAC CIO annual meeting, and I'm just going to put this out there that we need to start a competition, because we had 70 people plus there, and I'm here to tell you, we're going to win. I'm going to go buy like a golden shoe or a boot for boots on the ground or something, because I'm here to tell you. And I know that sometimes when things are on the excitement level of going on around our community, people show up, and this was no exception. And I'd like to say thank you to the city and the city staff. I did throw a little bit of a curveball at them, and I apologize. I knew there would be a lot of people, so I added some fun facts about different things. Is it bass or trout in the Lake of the Commons? Do any of you know?
Bass.
There you go. Okay, so anyway, there were just a lot of fun things, and I'd like to publicly say thank you so much for taking care of that, and for everyone's presentations there. It was a great evening. And then, of course, State of the City, and then Thursday, I had the opportunity with Councilor Sacco and the mayor to attend the volunteer celebration at Bricks, and that was pretty amazing. But before that, I did attend a town hall put on by Congresswoman Salinas, Congresswoman Bonnie Michi, and Congresswoman Catherine Clark from Massachusetts. It was regarding Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare, and myself and about 600 other people, not kidding. I parked 3 blocks away from the Conestoga Recreation Center. It was very enlightening. It is very enlightening, and something everyone should learn as much as you possibly can about about those topics. So thank you.
Councilor Reyes.
Nothing to report, thank you.
Council President Pratt.
I went to the C4 Metro meeting, and the hottest topic of discussion was the Transportation Regional Flexible Funds. That's about $42 million that gets spread out between the 3 counties. And what happened is that Metro has different criteria for measuring which projects go to the top, and the way they do it, it just so happened that 4 out of the 5 top projects went to the other side of Portland in the whole metro area. So, of course, that was Clackamas County, and there was a little bit of upset that none of our projects in Clackamas County made the top list. So we asked them to maybe reconsider their criteria when that's happening. And then the State of the City, of course, was great. And then, Councilor Reyes is gone, so I attended the Core Area Parking Advisory Committee, and we went over the budget. And then Councilor Reyes has brought this up before, but the white lot by the dental offices there's about 30% or so of that parking lot's in a floodplain, it's actually in the flood zone, and then part of it's in the floodplain, and it floods now, and it would just be exorbitantly costly to fix it, so they're just keeping an eye on it, and because of those new FEMA criteria, it's going to be really tough to solve that problem. Then, let's see, I wrote down the Jerian thing. I think that's it. Okay, well, thank you.
All right. The 16th, I attended the WEA board meeting, and that was transportation. Transportation's picking up again because of the session, being halfway done. The trip, the suggested plan, the transportation plan from the Oregon legislature had been released. So WEA had reviewed it, and we discussed it. That evening, I went to Sherwood State of the City event, really nicely put on at their Performing Arts Center. On the 18th, had the opportunity to go on the QPO tour with Sid and Annalea Jackson of the Chamber. Very cool to see a high technology firm right down the road, kicking things into gear, getting their assembly line up and running, and then already be asking to look for bigger digs because they're going to outgrow the facility they're in 3 years. And Sid was right there with suggestions. So it was kind of cool to see that. That day was also the legislative update from League of Oregon Cities, always an interesting hour, but that one was pretty short that day. It was kind of for 20 minutes. And then that evening was the town hall with Representative Walters, Nguyen, and Senator Wagner. Very well attended. I was just expecting 10 people, but the room was full, standing room only. And majority of the folks there were there to talk about school districts, about TTSD, Westland, and Wilsonville had announced the cuts they're anticipating. So teachers' unions and parents were there asking what's the legislature going to do about the funding issue at schools. The State of the City, I want to thank again city staff for helping put that together. Heidi was phenomenal. She did a great job putting the logistics together to Tualatin Valley Access TV. I want to thank for doing the videos and being there. We had no glitches this year, no computer crashes. It was cool. And I also want to thank the Grand Hotel. It was a fantastic location. The room was set up well, sound. People were coming up to me after the event, and they really enjoyed the format and the space and the breakfast burritos. On the 24th, the Chamber Board meeting, the Tualatin Chamber Board meeting, gave an update there on what's going on in the city. Later that afternoon was the MMC meeting. The two things we talked about was legislative update, what's going on, what bills had died, what ones are still on the radar. We particularly focused in on the one bill that is morphed multiple times now about striking workers being able to be paid compensation. That's morphed now that there will be a waiting period and a max benefit, but that is moving forward despite multiple, LOC and other cities, opposing it. And then a big chunk of time was spent on the latest update to supportive housing services, the update on how the counties and the cities and Metro are trying to get an agreement going here about getting a ballot initiative going for funding. I'm getting the idea that it might not happen this November because they still haven't worked out their differences. The counties are still going back and forth with Metro on certain items that they're going to work out. The volunteer appreciation event was very nicely done. Shout out to the winners, especially the Rotarians for all the things they do, the group. Very much appreciate what they're doing. And then finally, the last legislative update for League of Oregon Cities. Again, it was all about transportation now with the trip and people. Big call for city electeds to review the transportation package and write op-eds. And because if the legislature doesn't do anything, we're going to be in a world of hurt. So if there are certain things you don't like in the package, let your representatives know. But if you do support it, also let them know. I wrote an article that'll be coming out in Tualatin Life on an update on what is included in the trip, asking people to read it and then contact their legislators and senators about this package. Of course, it's a lot of revenue increases, a lot of new taxes, a lot of new fees, but our transportation system's falling apart, and the money has to come from somewhere. Yes, there will be audits of ODOT and cleaning up their budget, but it's not going to fill the hole that we've gotten ourselves into. So, if you have an opinion, let your legislators know, because there's a strong feeling that it might not be addressed by the end of the session. They'll probably wait to the last minute to look at this and then run out of time. And so then you're probably looking at a special session or a short session, so it gets kicked down the road again for several months or a year. And that's it for me. So we have about 15 minutes. So we'll go ahead and adjourn this work session, and we'll come back for a regular city council meeting at 7 o'clock.